So, as you're going through life and recovery and evolving as a human, which we are constantly always doing, I just wanted to throw out the reminder that people really take into consideration about how you make them feel. So, when you are encountering somebody, just always remember they're not going to remember, specifically how you looked, any of that kind of stuff. They're going to remember how you make them feel validated, heard, seen, accepted, loved, all of that stuff. So when you can show up and just be present with somebody, a friend, a family member, a coworker, and you can make them feel validated, seen, heard, accepted, then you are really going to impact them. So everybody take that in consideration. And I want you to take it a step further, because what I'm really wanting you to go deep with is you are going to remember how you make yourself feel. So what does that mean? When you're going through your day to day, how do you make yourself feel? How do you talk to yourself? That is one direct way where you can start to build and enhance and create the relationship with yourself where you are your own best friend, your teammate, and the love of your life. And that can come directly through self-talk. So we have to be mindful when we're doing this, and we have to practice self-awareness, which takes time, and sometimes it can be very cringe, and you do need to check in throughout the day. But just notice those little things. How are you talking to yourself? What kind of things do you allow yourself to say to yourself, like the little voice inside? And for me, for a really long time, the little voice inside was the eating disorder, and it was super mean. I'm sure we can all imagine, right? It's controlling, it's dictating, it tells me every nasty thing I ever wanted and did not want to hear about myself. And as I was going through recovery, it really helped me to separate myself, me, from my eating disorder. And I've done previous videos and I labeled eating disorder as enemy number one. When the eating disorder would give me these thoughts, right, I'd hear them, and it would want me to act on a certain behavior, or it would tell me that I was anything associated with less than, not good enough, all of that kind of stuff. What I would do is I would pause. I would go, excuse me? No, we are not going to have that self-talk anymore. I'm not going to allow this to be a part of me. So when the eating disorder would tell me to do something, I would insert a recovery behavior, which is, in short, you do the exact opposite of what the eating disorder tells you to do. And that literally applies to anything. So eating disorder tells you something. This time I'm going to use exercise as an example. You have to exercise today, or whatever, whatever it says. Okay, well, you know what you have to do? You have to show the eating disorder that it's not important, you don't listen to it, it does not control your life, and it does not dictate what you do. So you know what you have to do? Not exercise. And believe me, that was hard for me. Your brain will eventually get to the notion where the eating disorder is not going to harass you on that anymore. And you have to be very firm in every facet that the eating disorder affects you in. You have to practice self-awareness, and you have to be very firm with it and diligent of shutting that crap down. Whatever it tells you, do the exact opposite. That's basically a recovery-based behavior, because you are then creating your new neural pathways. So think about it this way. When you have an eating disorder, it has told you to do something and you have responded and you've done that thing. And that can be pretty continuous, right? So you do it, and then all of a sudden it just becomes something that you do, and then the eating disorder is like, okay, cool, you've done that, now I want you to do this. You do it, and then it just becomes something that you do. And then the eating disorder is like, cool, now I want you to do this. And that is how eating disorders continue to escalate. That's how they continue to eventually control your entire life, and they get intertwined. And for me, it got intertwined in everything about me, down to my finances. So when I say it is a mental disorder, it is a mental disorder, and it will intertwine wherever it can. So when every time that my eating disorder was like, do this thing, and I did that thing, I created a neural pathway for that behavior and that response. When you go into recovery, you are going to be doing the same exact thing, except you are going to be using recovery-based behaviors. So if the eating disorder says, don't eat that, you have to create the new pathway, the new neural pathway. So eating disorder says, don't eat that. Do the exact opposite. That's recovery-based behavior. So you eat that thing, okay? You're creating a new neural pathway. You're showing the eating disorder that whatever it is telling you, it's not important anymore, okay? The fear-based response, that could very well happen, and you may have an internal fit, you may have fear, anxiety, you may feel like you need to do something to compensate for the thing that you just did, and those are also things that you're going to have to put a pause on and not do. Your eating disorder is going to get mad, and guess what? That's great. That's exactly what you want. Because when your eating disorder throws a fit and it tries to get you to continue to do the thing and you don't, you are getting one step closer to being separated from it, to creating a life where you don't have the eating disorder anymore, i.e., when you are in full recovery and you are completely independent and no longer connected to the eating disorder. So, monitor your thoughts throughout the day. And if you think that, this was helpful for me. So when I decided that eating disorder was enemy number one, and I became really self-aware and I would tune into the thoughts that I was having, I decided that anything that was not love-based, right? Not me, because I am love. And, my purpose is not to be controlled by an eating disorder or have my life robbed from joy and all of this, that, and the other, right? Like, my purpose is love. My purpose is connection with others, but first and foremost with myself. And the eating disorder was getting in the way of that. So I would hear the eating disorder voice and it would say, do this thing. And I just have to go, oh my God, that is not me. That is not what I want. I know that I want to be recovered. I want to have full recovery. And if I consistently do what it wants me to do, I'm not going to be recovered. So you have to separate it. And eventually I would hear the eating disorder voice and it would just be so mean. Like for a long time, I did not check it. And I just let it continue to do whatever it wanted to do, say whatever it wanted to say, make me feel less than. And I wouldn't put it in its place. And then it got to the point where I started doing that consistently every single time and shutting it down. And once you're recovered, the eating disorder voice goes away, right? Because you're full recovery. But that's not to say it's not going to come up. And that's not to say the inner critic, a lot of people like to call that voice the inner critic, isn't going to come up. But you can create whatever relationship that you want to have internally, and you get to decide what you're going to accept. So for me personally, I don't have an inner critic. If something comes up and it tries to tell me horrific things about myself, I do the same thing that I did to the eating disorder voice. I'm like, bro, hold up. You really think you're about to say that to me? Like, think about it this way. If it was your best friend and somebody was saying this horrendous stuff to your best friend, what would you do? Would you just be like, yeah, totally, yep, be silent and I'm gonna do what you say, and yeah, God, keep going, keep telling me all this horrible stuff about myself, go, or about her, go. No, you're not going to do that. As a best friend, which is what you are to yourself, you are your own best friend. It's your responsibility and within your rights to be like, absolutely not. You think you're going to talk to me like that? No. If you want to interject and have some encouragement, some compassion, I'm all for that. And if you want to have some tough love conversation with me and I need to practice self-awareness and just sit in a moment where I cringe and I go, oh God, why? And really reflect that way, that's fine. But you're not going to sit here and tell me and make me listen to all of the horrific things that you want to say. No, we do not tolerate that anymore. And that's not something that you would allow to happen to your best friend. You would stick up for that person. And that's what you have to do with yourself. Every human in general, right? no matter what. If you're eating disorder recovery and that voice is the eating disorder voice, or if you are just a completely normal person and you have the self-doubt going on, turn that around. Use some teammate talk. You have some self-doubt talk going? Okay, well, how about, yeah, girl, I know this is really hard. Yeah, of course it's hard, but you know what? We can do hard things and we're going to get through it. It can literally be as simple as that. And you know what another really great tool is? Journaling. Just write it out. However it's making you feel, whatever it's saying, write it out and then battle it. Prove to it why it's wrong and why you're not going to tolerate those responses or remarks, what have you. So to summarize, people, remember how you make them feel. You remember how you make you feel. You're going to remember the relationship that you have with yourself. You're going to remember all of the times that you advocated for yourself, you showed up for yourself, you had compassion for yourself, you trusted yourself, you respected yourself, you had love for yourself. All of the things. You're going to remember how you make yourself feel. And we do have the ability to put our thoughts in check, okay? A lot of people think that they can just run rampant and da-da-da-da-da and all day long. Well, that can happen. Or you can say, hold up, I'm not going to tolerate this, whatever is going on, we're going to stop that and just drop in, remember who you are, right? Who you are and the love that you deserve, love from yourself, my gosh, certainly love from yourself, and set the tone, okay? Set the internal tone of what you're going to tolerate you saying to you. Self-talk is so important. And if self-talk is difficult and you have issues doing that, then I invite you to insert a mantra, and you don't even have to believe the mantra, just something that resonates with you. And when the negativity or the rabbit hole or anything that you don't want to think about comes in and tries to take control and make you feel a certain way, insert the mantra. I don't care how many times you need to say it. I just want you to insert the mantra and continue to say it. And eventually your brain is going to be like, you know what? I've realized that she doesn't listen when we tell her this stuff anymore, and it's going to stop. It'll literally stop. I never ever thought it would. If you told me that 10 years ago, I've been like, no. That's cute, but no. And as I sit here today, I can tell you that it is fact. And it does not mean that the thoughts don't come, but it does mean that you are strong enough to put those thoughts in their place and dictate your internal state back to you, back to love. So take that, and when you interact with humans today and every day, just remember, people appreciate the way that you make them feel safe, validated, heard, respected, loved, and that's the same for you.